First up is Donal, and Donal is a member of the Irish Haemophilia Society. He's a volunteer for our organisation. He's worked with the children's programmes for many years. Donal is currently a member of our executive board, does great work for our organisation. And I'm going to hand it over to Donal now, and he's going to just give a little bit of information on his own personal experience living with von Willebrand's. So thanks, Donal.
Thanks very much, Debbie. First of all, thanks very much, Michelle, as well. Excellent talk. Much appreciated. As Debbie already said, yeah, I'm executive board member for the Irish Haemophilia Society, but I'm also a working member group for the von Willebrand's committee. There's a couple of us there across Europe that have come together to educate and advocate for men and women across Europe with von Willebrand's and give them a bit of a voice. My story starts, I've only got 5 minutes, by the way, just to tell this story. And 5 minutes, I wouldn't get my socks on in 5 minutes these days. But it starts basically the day I was born. Great day for the parish. But I started off bleeding. As soon as I was born, I was bleeding from the mouth and from my nose. My mother, was talking to the midwives, and she was trying to explain to them that it was my blood, but they were kind of convinced that it was my mother's blood, that it just kind of congealed up and piled up. From then on, I was spent 6 or maybe 7 days in ICU, continuously bleeding. Finally stopped, they let me out, and from the day I was born till about 8 months old, I had a lot of mouth bleeds and a lot of nose bleeds. Then when I was about 8 months old, it got to the stage that I had a very, very bad nosebleed. It kind of lasted about a day. My mother brought me to the doctor, the local GP, which surprisingly is still alive. He was old back then, and he's still alive. But he said, look, we'll leave it for another day, and we'll see how he is tomorrow. I bled like a pig throughout the night. My mother brought me into the hospital the next day, and they left me in there for 18 hours before they treated me. On the 18th hour, they treated me, and my nose stopped about 20 minutes after that. So they were fairly convinced then that I had a bleeding disorder. My mother was trying to convince them the whole time that I did have von Willebrand's because she knew my father's history, but yet they didn't want to test me. From then on, I had a lot of muscle bleeds, joint bleeds, spontaneous stomach bleeds, obviously nosebleeds and mouth bleeds. The nose was the big thing. I would have had a lot of cauterizations in my nose. It just basically didn't stop. Every time I went into hospital, it was a case of, take me in for 3 or 4 nights at a time and let me home. Sure, as soon as I went home, it started bleeding again. I was never given any treatment to go home with. I know Michelle's a big believer in tranexamic acid, but I have PTSD about it, even about the taste of it. It was just shoveled into me as a child, shoveled into me. And I might as well have been taking Tic Tacs. So just never done anything for me, unfortunately. Yeah, and kind of I would have had a lot then, kind of from the teenage years on, as teenage boys, would have been wrestling and acting the maggot and jumping out of trees and falling off motorbikes. I got a good few injuries from motorbikes as well. So I would have had a lot of muscle bleeds and a lot of joint bleeds caused by trauma that would have bled continuously. I would have gone into hospital to begin with to get treatment, but I would have been let out a couple of days later with no ongoing treatment. So, as soon as I got off the couch in a funny position, it would have bled again, and that continued on for about 10 years or so, between my knee and my shoulder, ankle and my hip, my elbow, a couple more actually as well. But so I've got a lot of I've got a lot of joint damage caused by that. I kind of, when I was kind of about 22, 23 years old, I distanced myself from my centre, unfortunately. I just kind of got fed up of, being kept in for 3 or 4 days every time I had a nosebleed. I was losing a lot of time in work, and, I kind of got fed up of, staying in hospital. So I kind of, about 27 years old then, I was having a lot of, by the way, I'm 29, I'm not even 30, still young. But just before Christmas, when I was 27 years old, I was having an awful lot of nosebleeds, bad ones that were lasting, 3, 4, 5 days at a time. That was normal, but these ones were just, I don't know if it was my mentality at the time that I was just sick of it. I was just fed up with the bleeds because I was bleeding, you know, 3-4 days of every single week, there was blood in my nose. Some of those days now, they were heavy bleeds. Some of the days it was just a trickle. But, you know, if you add up all those days throughout the year and then throughout the 29 years, you know, 90% of my life I've had blood in my nose and just blood dripping out of me somewhere. But yeah, sorry, when I was 20 then, I ended up kind of losing my patience, and I went back into the centre, and well, I was already in hospital, but you know, I kind of consulted a little bit with the doctors and my consultants, and they eventually decided to put me onto home treatment, which was on demand. So when I needed it, I gave it to myself, and it has turned my life upside down. Absolutely, I regret not going in and having that conversation when I was 22 or 23 years old. No, it was definitely helped by a very good friend of mine who's in the game, so knows our stuff. But yeah, I do regret not going in when I was much younger and having that conversation with them and trying to explain to them the situation that I've been in and the pain that I am in every day for my joints. And yeah, it's made a massive difference. I've got so much more confidence, even traveling and things like that. You know, I just put the treatment into the bag. If I have a bleed when I'm abroad, I know that I'm not going to spend 4 or 5 days of my holiday stuck in my bedroom, you know, with bloody tissue up against my nose. Or I used to do is push the tissue up into your nose, but it only lasts a couple of minutes before it starts coming down your beard. But yeah, so I've over the last couple of years, I've got more involved in the IHS, and I'm thankful that they took me on as a board member, and of course with the Von Willebrand group as well. So I'm very passionate about trying to push for better care and better treatment for people across Ireland and Europe that need it. So that's me.
Thanks very much, Donal. That was really good. Very interesting to hear everything there. Donal, what would be your hopes for the future at this point?
The diagnosis is a really big thing to me, and it's something I'm very passionate about. I have a little girl now, she's 19 months now, but for the first 6 months, you know, I couldn't sleep at night. I was up checking her joints every day. I was constantly worried about bleeds, and it was just something I was lost. Obviously, I was getting no sleep at the time because of night feeds, but the rest of the time I was sleeping, I was having nightmares about her bleeding. We were lucky enough that we got her umbilical cord tested, and that came back a negative. And then we got tested again then a couple of months after that, and that came back a negative as well. So Darcy doesn't actually have a bleeding disorder. But I've been after hearing stories from people I know that have von Willebrands and have kids, and that, you know, they were 12 months before they were tested, and then, you know, when you're waiting another 12 months to between 6 to 12 months to get a test result back. So that's something that has really hit a nerve with me, and it's something that I'm passionate about. I'm going to push for it, and I'm going to make a difference in it.